India is the world's fifth largest economy. Only the US, China, Japan, and Germany are ahead of it. And according to the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, the country is forecast to become the third largest economy by 2027, overtaking Japan and Germany. Prime Minister Narendra Modi too claims that India will figure in the top three economies of the world in his third term. To get the third term, Modi will face general elections sometime next year. There are a few reasons which led to India's rise as an economic power. While India's GDP grew by 83% between 2014 and 2023, several other competing countries stagnated. Our growth rate was a shade lower than the 84% increase achieved by China during this period. The US GDP increased by 54%. However, barring these three countries, all the other top 10 countries have seen their GDP stagnate or even contract. Despite India's economy not growing as fast as it would like to, meaning 8 to 9% per annum, even a more modest growth rate of 6% per annum will be enough for India to overtake Germany and Japan by 2027. India grew at a rate of 7.2% in FY23. India has also made major strides in other aspects of the economy as well. Some of the Modi government's flagship schemes have started to bear fruit. Revenue from the Goods and Services Tax or GST collected in March this year was more than 1,60,000 crore rupees, the second highest monthly collections ever since its launch in July 2017. The total gross revenue in FY23 surpassed 18 trillion rupees with over 22% year-on-year growth. In industrial policy too, Apple's decisive manufacturing shift towards India came as a major boost to the government's Make in India ambitions. The production of iPhones by the tech giant's contract manufacturers reportedly tripled to $7 billion in FY23. The Cupertino-based company now produces almost 7% of its iPhones in India as against a mere 1% in 2021, Bloomberg reported. Of the iPhones produced in India last fiscal year, $5 billion worth of smartphones were exported, the report said, citing sources. The rapid proliferation of PLI schemes also means that government's merit-based subsidies for industrial growth now expands across 14 sectors, including mobile manufacturing and specified electronic components, manufacturing of medical devices, automobiles and auto components, specialty steel, food products, textile products, solar PV modules, toys, and more. However, the government has continued its trade policy reversals. India's G20 presidency saw us rooting for international cooperation, and we also entered a number of bilateral FTAs. However, we steered clear of multilateral trade agreements like the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity or IPEF's trade pillar. There are also, of course, the most recent curbs on laptop imports.
Number one, the economy has clearly recovered from the pandemic. The GST has settled down. Two, there is a lot of entrepreneurial drive, which is reflected in the proliferation of startups. I think the one area where we have regressed is in the area of openness to trade. Tariffs have been raised, and most recently, the decision to impose licensing on computers, which fortunately, and I give the ministry credit for that, has now been withdrawn. This is not a world in which people would say there should be no industrial policy. All over the world, governments are intervening. But the intervention must be strategically designed, and secondly, it should be well structured.
Experts point out more than the absolute GDP, per capita GDP has often been cited as a more essential indicator of economic growth. And India's rankings in terms of GDP per capita have fallen with rising rankings in absolute GDP. Despite India's rise to the top 5 club, per capita GDP rankings have been above 150 in a list of 200 plus countries. It is at the level of the individual that India's economic portrait starts showing signs of strain. Recent government reports like the NHFS, MIS and MPS have revealed that India is still lacking in crucial markers like nutrition, workforce participation rate, educational outcomes, etc. Over half of all women and children in the country are anemic, and the number has increased in the last 3 years. NFHS 5 data shows anemia rates increased from 53% to 57% in women and 58% to 67% in children in 2019-21. A total of 29.3% of people aged 15 to 24 years are not in education, employment or training, shows the MIS. Most importantly, while the unemployment rate for persons aged 15 years and above in urban areas declined to 6.8% in the final quarter of FY 2023 from 8.2% a year ago, economists believe it is still a major chink in India's macroeconomic armor.
I think the most important indicator for us is actually that of employment. Because one of the frightening things in India is that this high growth is not coming with increases in good quality employment. More than half of them are self-employed. About 80% of them are employed in informal capacity. That is, they have no legal protection, nothing. We are trying to pretend that there are more formal workers by saying anyone who has signed up for the EPF, the Employee Provident Fund, is a formal worker. Now, that's not true, because in fact, in the EPF rolls, that about half of them are defunct in the sense that somebody signed up, but then has not, subsequently paid in. Many of them don't even know that they have these rights.
What then are the major challenges India might face in realizing its economic goals before the next 15th of August? And how can we counter these challenges?
One prime challenge really is maintaining the macro balance of the economy. That is not going to be very easy. Fiscal consolidation means not just the center, but also the states. And unfortunately, there is a very strong pressure for, as it were, giveaways, freebies, non-merit subsidies to expand. And in the run-up to an election, that's almost certain to happen anyway, okay? Even for the central government, some of the bases on which the fiscal deficit was going to be contained involved very substantial privatization of the existing system and also greater reliance on PPP rather than government investment. That doesn't seem to be moving as was originally intended. We've not, except for Air India, we've not really successfully privatized any public sector company practically.
We have terrible human development indicators, nutrition, health. So we first of all need to dramatically increase our spending on health, education, nutrition, sanitation, the basic essential social services. And for heaven's sake, fill all the vacancies. There are so many vacancies in public employment. We don't have enough doctors, enough nurses, enough teachers, enough people to clean the schools, enough security for the schools, etc. So all of this is something that can be done very quickly, very easily. So a focus on social services, on agriculture, on small, medium, and micro enterprises. That helps the employment problem, that helps the nutrition problem, that helps the livelihood issue, that helps the overall human development.
Therefore, while experts point out that the Indian economy will easily breach into the top 3 economies of the world, they also point out that the real test and proof of our economic development will come with a positive uptick in more fine-grained demographic markers. A sharp focus on uplifting the living conditions of the people will help India reap the demographic dividend.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views, and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, and LinkedIn.
He's about to land his dream job. Business Standard.